CrohnsCast Live tonight with Alex, also known as Tales from the Bag, all the way over in Vancouver, as promised. So yeah, we're going to be getting stuck into this tonight and just having a chat, looking at what Alex has been up to, his sort of ostomy life that he is leading, what got him there, and what sort of stuff we are into. So Alex, do you want to say hello to everybody?
Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're having a great day. Whatever time frame you're in right now, noon or night.
What I'd like to look at, first of all, is how did you end up getting an ostomy? So what was going on in your life at the time that resulted in you having an ostomy, and what was the decision process that made you join that?
Yep. So the ostomy specifically was kind of an extended 10-year journey towards getting an ostomy, I guess. Like it's a long drawn out process. So I was around 21 when I got hit with a really, really, really bad flare. I was living in British Columbia at the time, and I flew home. I was basically jaundiced and severely underweight, like 130 pounds. And flew home, and my mom took one look at me and wouldn't let me go back to BC, where I still had a residence. And we worked through, I ended up seeing a specialist in Toronto at that stage, and he tried me on put me on a bunch of drugs to jump through the red tape to get me onto Remicade. And basically, if he said if Remicade didn't work, I was losing my large intestine at that time, which I didn't really focus on that part. I was just like, I was so sick and just sort of done with everything. I was like, all right, well, the drugs are going to work because that's just how it's going to be. And I didn't even really put any thought at all into the ostomy at 21, other than the doctor making jokes saying it'll be easier for me to take a crap in the woods.
So how did you find Remicade?
Remicade, I took my first dose, and after being almost bedridden for like 3 months, I was up and I went snowboarding like a week after my first dose. So I reacted really well to it, and managed to basically move back out west within sort of a month and a half of being on the drug. And then I was in complete remission for about 10 years, pretending like I didn't have Crohn's disease at all. So eating whatever I wanted, drinking whatever I wanted, living the life of a 20-year-old at a ski resort.
Yeah, living the life of a 20-year-old at a ski resort, that's got to be some kind of dream, that. With the decision to have an ostomy, like what sort of processes did you have to go through? Was it something you took lightly, or was this something that had you thinking about a lot during that 10-year period? And what was the final nail in the coffin, if you will?
So over the 10 years, I didn't even give it a thought. I pretended I didn't have Crohn's disease, let alone like threatened with an ostomy. And then after about 10 years of Remicade being very effective, I through a bunch of miscommunication with my medical team and myself, ended up being off the drug for about 6 months. And by the time I got back onto it, the drug stopped working. And so at that time, I was in and out of hospital, just severely sick. My longest stay was 2 months straight at one stage. And that was the first time that the ostomy was a serious consideration for me. One of the emergency doctors was talking to me and saying, like, look, you've tried, well, Remicade stopped working for you. I went through Humira within a year, 8 months to a year, that not working. And Entyvio, I think I tried that for 6 months to a year. That didn't work. And during my 2-month stay in hospital, basically just being like not eating for, I think they were just feeding with the PICC line through TPN. And that seemed to help out a little bit, just giving my bowels some rest. And they said if Stelara didn't work, then there was really no other medical option other than an ostomy. And that's kind of when I was like, well, this may be a reality, but I still didn't accept it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not getting an ostomy. That's just a failure on my part. So I'm going to try my best to eat properly. I'm going to watch my diet. I'm going to do everything I can on my side to help the medication take effect. And for me, that was the goal when the ostomy became more serious of an option, but I kind of fought against it.
So what was your fear about getting an ostomy?
I don't even really know. It was, I just didn't like the idea of my intestines coming out of my stomach. I was scared of having a major surgery. The whole idea of it was just foreign to me. And I was like, I should be stronger than this. I need to be able to control it on my own. I don't think I honestly didn't put too much thought into the ostomy itself. Like I to this, like even leading up like a week before my surgery, I hadn't really considered what life with an ostomy was. It was more, how do I avoid it? Just because I thought it would be a failure if I got it.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think so many people that are at that point where it's not something they've really heard of before or thought about as a mode of treatment, it can be really scary. And the thought of all the things you've just described can be almost overpowering.
Mm-hmm.
And we only recently we've seen in the news that someone was so put off by the idea of an ostomy that they ended up going to court over in the UK and being allowed to just pass away. But moving up, fast forward into you've had your ostomy surgery. What was it like waking up and realizing I've got a stoma? And then moving forward with that, like how did it impact your life?
The first thing I really remember, like coming out of the haze of like medication, because like the drugs you're on when you're coming out of the surgery are pretty heavy. And the first thing I sort of really keyed in on was this fog that was lifted off my brain that I didn't even realize was there for so many years. Like I don't even know how long that brain fog was on me, but it was like I could think clearly because I like suddenly I didn't have this Crohn's disease just ravaging my body. Like it was just, that was my biggest takeaway first off. I mean, the recovery period for me, because I was really sick going into the surgery, so I knew that they wanted to remove my rectum and my anus at the same time, but I was too weak for them to do the both operations. So they just did the keyhole surgery to remove my my large intestine, and then just sort of wait and heal up to see what we could do about the next stage. But yeah, that was my main takeaway, like coming out of it, was just I could think clearly again. And then the healing process was certainly slower than I wanted it to be, but I think it was quite a bit faster than a lot of my medical team expected of me. I was back strapped into my snowboard about 2.5 months after my surgery. And I didn't just go inbounds. I strapped on my splitboard and hiked off into the backcountry.
Wow, that is pretty extreme. So how did you find that? How did you was it just this feeling of being well that made you feel that you could just go and jump back onto your board, or what was going on with you at the time?
For me, that was what sort of motivated me and pushed me to really, like I wanted to. I'd been missing out on snowboarding for the better part of 5 years as I was in and out of hospital with no energy and couldn't really stray 10 feet from a toilet. And I love connecting with nature. That's where I draw my energy from. And having not been able to experience that to the fullest for so many years, I really, really wanted to get back into it. And so I worked with a physio to strengthen my core after surgery, because you know, it's pretty major when they cut you open and rip out your guts. So you need to heal all the muscle and everything from in there. And it was just that motivation to get back out and to reconnect with nature and to, you know, that's a huge driving force for me, because I hate working out. It's I don't know, a lot of people really love it, and I've tried to get into it, and the only thing that makes me want to work out is to be able to do something else. And that, for me, that was snowboarding and later date kiteboarding, but the snowboarding was the first thing I wanted to tick off the list. And yeah, it was really just about to get back into the mountains and reconnect with nature.
So, how do you find doing these sports whilst having an ostomy? Like, is there anything that you're concerned about whilst you're doing it? And what have you found that it's maybe more useful than you thought?
My biggest takeaway from is just the preparation beforehand. But in terms of doing all the sports I do now with an ostomy, it's honestly easier than it was before because now, like, I don't have to worry about like crapping my pants like out in the middle of nowhere and like being stuck in the backcountry with some soiled snowsuit, like with the ostomy, it's really easy, when it's filling up. I carry backup supply with me just in case, like, I do get a leak when I'm out there, which, I mean, I haven't. I usually put on a fresh bag before I do anything too crazy. Yeah, no, it's so much easier. Like, if I need to go to the bathroom, it's just, I pull out my bag. I don't need to drop my pants down. Again, preparation for that, I bring dog poop bags with me, and I just empty into that, and then have another water bottle that's clearly marked for waste and do not drink out of. And I put the bags in there so that, you don't want that ripping in your pack. Yeah, no, it's way easier to handle, maintain everything. And I also find that when I exercise, the output slows down quite a bit. So for me, it's, I'll go backcountry snowboarding for a day and I'll empty before I head out into the mountains. And then I might need to empty once while I'm out there. But for the most part, when I'm exercising, it slows right down. Which is pretty convenient.
How do you find, like, the attachment when you're doing these things? Do you worry about it coming loose, or do you do anything that helps to keep it stuck on?
I don't do anything extra special. When I do water sports, I'll put on like a flange extender or the adhesive barrier tape just to have an extra piece, because I do find water does sort of work away at the edges of the base plate quicker than not. But for the most part, I just stick it down and let it go. But I don't do any extra prep or have anything extra going on at the time. And I'm very lucky in that I tend to get anywhere from 3 to 5 days out of my bags. Recently, I did have to do a switch because I was in a flat piece, and then after my most recent surgery, I don't know, my body reacted to it strangely, and now I'm in a convex bag, which kind of just helps push the stoma out, because I think mine was retracting a little bit over time.
So how many surgeries have you had then as a result of your Crohn's disease to get this ostomy?
Just the 2 now. So I had the one to form the stoma, and then about 3-4 months ago now, I had my rectum and anus removed because my Crohn's was always perianal, so it was mostly affecting my rectum and my
so we got the classic Barbie butt.
Yeah, classic Barbie butt.
So how do you get out into the mountains then? What sort of stuff do you do out there? So snowboarding, like I've snowboarded, but I find it difficult to go anything more than actually just on the runs. So what sort of stuff do you use to do that?
Like equipment wise?
Yeah.
So I have a split board. So basically my snowboard splits down in 2, and then I can use it almost like a pair of skis. And there's what's called a climbing skin. So you stick this thing to the bottom, and it slides one way and grips the other, so I can walk out and basically climb or ascend anything. And in my pack, I'll have my shovel and probe. Those are just avalanche safety equipment. And I have a transceiver on my chest in case I do get caught in an avalanche, or anybody in my party does, so I can either search or be found. But yeah, the snowboard is pretty incredible to like you can pretty much, it's an all-terrain vehicle. It's just the power of your legs. You get out there, it's pretty awesome. I've also been very lucky, and a couple of friends of mine have snowmobiles, and been able to hop on the back of their sled, and they'll rip out. And backcountry snowmobiling is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. It's a big workout.
Yeah, I never would have thought actually driving a machine would actually be a workout.
Yeah, it's because it's weird, because when you're in bottomless snow, like it's a balancing act. Like it's, you know, instead of turning the skis, they do nothing. You have to actually bank the sled in it. And so when you have two people on it, it's even more of a balancing act, and you sort of have to work together to figure out your angles and everything. But yeah, for the most part, I use my split board though, and that seems to, you drive out to the trailhead and hike up. So it's a lot of work. You end up hiking, you know, far more than you actually snowboard down. But it's just so, yeah, the snow you get when you do tend to do that is way better than stuff you get in the resort.
So how do you find with that, like, do you ever do overnights when you're out doing this?
I haven't yet, but in British Columbia we have there's a lot of backcountry huts, and from what I've been told, a few of the huts do have outhouses. So that would probably be my first thing that I'm going to attempt to do with the overnight is get into some hut travel. And so you have a little bit of a base camp, and then sort of use that. And then if it has an outhouse, it's much easier to deal with the waste that way. Otherwise, I mean, in the mountains, when you're above the alpine and up in the glaciers and snow, you can't really just dump your poop. You got to sort of carry it out with you. You pack in what you pack out, so that includes your waste. So you got to have room in your pack.
So I noticed from your page you do quite a number of other extreme sort of sports. What are those, and how did you get into them?
My main other, I guess you call them extreme, I call them adventure sports.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't personally think it's extreme, but it's, I guess from the outside looking in, it could look that way. But kiteboarding is definitely a huge passion of mine. So that one I got into through a previous job. I worked at a retail outlet that sold kiteboard equipment, and my boss was like, hey, because I worked there for the winter, and he wanted some summer staff, so got me trained up on kiteboarding. And it's one of the most insanely addictive sports I've ever participated in. Basically, kiteboarding is sort of a weird hybrid between wakeboarding and windsurfing, but instead of like a windsurf sail, you have like a kite that flies up in the air, and so it's all wind powered, but you're using, you know, whatever. There's people that use surfboards. I mostly ride a twin tip, and it's but you can just go wherever. You know, you're not getting towed around by a boat. You can jump. I'm still working on getting better at jumping, but
well, probably the jumping part's fine. It's the landing, is it?
Yeah, well, it's a whole timing thing. If you don't time you got to send the kite and pop, and it's a bunch of different things to get a really good jump in. And I haven't mastered that quite yet, but I'm working on it. And but it's just so free, like as long as you have the wind, which that's another frustrating part, is finding predictable wind, but that's a different story altogether. But yeah, that's
I guess what I want to know about the sort of kiteboarding, because I used to wakeboard, is like, what do you have any concerns again about like doing this with an ostomy, and like have you had any falls where you've felt a bit worried about your ostomy? So
the first time I went kiteboarding with my ostomy, I was concerned about impact, specifically. So I have ostomy armor. It's basically a metal shield that goes over your stoma, just protects it from high impact things. But with kiteboarding, you're also wearing a wetsuit. There's especially like where I am, you're wearing a wetsuit because it's a glacier fed river you're kiting in, so it's pretty cold water. But so I found, and then the harness, I wear a waist harness, so it wraps around. I almost wear it on my chest now because of my stoma. But that first session, I had this ostomy armor which sticks out, like a solid inch out of your chest, and then or waist, and then the harness sitting above that. And when I was out on my session, the harness was hitting the armor and knocking the flange off, and so I came off the water pretty quick and was just like, oh man, I totally just peeled off my bag inside my wetsuit. This is going to be awful. It was a near miss. That was the closest I've ever come to having an issue on the water. Since then, I don't wear the ostomy armor. Really, I don't have any fears about. I don't think I can get an impact that hard on my stoma, specifically kiteboarding, unless and if I do, then the stoma is the least of my worries, because I'm probably absolutely murdered myself on something else. So where, so that's kind of, I don't worry about it too much. The main concern really was a hernia, because kiteboarding is a lot of core work. So for me, that was, it was a lot of building up core strength and making sure that I was strong before hitting the water, as opposed to, is there something that I'm going to do while kiteboarding that will injure myself? It's all about the preparation beforehand and making sure you're strong enough to do the activity, instead of, is the activity going to hurt me? So it's all about the preparation, really. Yeah.
No, definitely. So whenever did your friends that you would do these sports with, are they aware that you've got an ostomy, and what are their thoughts?
Yeah,
do you guys talk about it?
I'm a pretty open book. Like, everybody, when I first saw a bunch of my friends, like, I was like showing them against their will that I had an ostomy. And I was pretty proud of it, to be honest, because I was so sick for so many years. I was like, look what I did. I'm better, and I'm going to go do this stuff. Like, I'm not letting anything hold me back. So that was my biggest thing. And I like, for the ostomy, I've always been pretty open about it with my group of friends or family, anybody like that, anybody that I know face to face. So I was always kind of not necessarily sharing my struggles, but saying, oh, hey, I have overcome this, like, whatever. And so yeah, everybody that I sort of knows that I have an ostomy, and they're like, oh, this is pretty cool that you can still do this. Like, that's they just, treat me like it's normal. Like, it's not a big deal at all. I've been very, very lucky with the people that I'm surrounded by, being very accepting. Nobody's.
So with that in mind, what was there anything that you were concerned about when you first started coming out into society with your stoma or your ostomy? Like, was there anything that you used to help you cope with having that? Or was there anything that you would say about your personality that helped you overcome being changed physically, I guess?
I guess for me, I've always just been able to roll with the punches and accept whatever reality I'm in, per se. So, like, even when I was really sick in hospital, I would, my family and I seem to have a dark sense of humor, especially in regards to poop and things of that nature. So I was always, there's hard times for sure, but I was always able to sort of make light and joke about it, and all sorts of different things. So I dealt with it a lot through humor. Was my main coping mechanism, I guess. So I kind of always made light of it and made fun of it a little bit. Not made fun of it, but made jokes with it, and so that's kind of how I coped, I guess. You just have to deal with it. It's what it is. It's not something you can necessarily change. Like, I did everything I could beforehand. Like, that's the thing with ostomy, is it's always presented as like a last resort thing. And I know there's a lot of controversy on how it's presented, but for me, the doctors were always sort of very positive about it, saying, hey, if this doesn't work, we do have to do this, but it's not the end. Like, one of my doctors was saying he's got patients that are pro football players, pro tennis players that have ostomies, and you'd never know it because, they're high level athletes. So part of me was like, okay, well, if I do get this, I'm not going to be the guy that just curls into a ball. I'm going to thrive with it, and I'm going to figure it out and and do whatever I want to do. Like, I'm not going to let it stop me from participating in the things that I want to participate in. That was,
Yeah, I think that's really admirable as well. I think for me, I was quite similar with my attitude towards things as well. Like, I just kind of put myself out there, and I found that as soon as I would talk about the elephant in the room, it ceased to be an elephant.
yeah.
So I think our mental attitudes towards those things are quite similar. Could you just let us know what's been the best thing about getting your ostomy?
The best thing is just freedom, really. When I was like, before my ostomy, I was always tied to a toilet. I was always in pain. I had a brain fog that I didn't even know about, so I couldn't even think clearly. So just being freed from all that and not being tied to a toilet anymore, so I can, go hike a mountain. I can go put a wetsuit on without fear I'm gonna crap in it. I can, try a new sport. Right now, I'm really intrigued. I want to get into free diving. I haven't yet, but I'm very intrigued by it. So it's just opening up doors and allowing me to do different things that I couldn't do before. So, like, before my ostomy, I was stuck for over 5 years. I had a split board. I wanted to do backcountry, but I couldn't go because not only like was I physically incapable, but if something went wrong in the backcountry, I wouldn't be able to help out my group with any sort of emergency, whether it's avalanche rescue or anything else. So I didn't want to put anybody else at risk doing those sports. And then, yeah, it's just freedom, I guess, is the big thing. Just your brain fog is gone from the Crohn's, and yeah, that's I guess the best way I can put it.
I think one of those things as well is with adventure sports or extreme sports, whichever way we want to term it, they can get real very, very quickly. Like, I would rock climb at quite, I don't want to say altitude, but above sort of 3,000 meters, and like high remote, and just something simple can turn into a pretty big deal just because of where you are geographically. Trying to get off a rock face from a sprained ankle, it just turns everything into just an absolute chore.
Yeah, exactly.
So I totally get it where you're coming from that perspective. Tell me, so you're looking at free diving. Have you done scuba diving with an ostomy?
I haven't done any scuba diving with the ostomy. I had scuba dive previous many, many years ago, but I haven't done it recently at all. I came across free diving, actually. A buddy of mine got me onto it. So he started free diving because he was doing the breathing exercises to help with stress from work. And so I was intrigued by the breathing exercise aspect of it. And so I've been doing a bunch of just breathing work. It really helps sort of focus your mind and relax you. And then I was like, started watching YouTube videos. I was like, oh man, this looks really cool. Like, you're just out there swimming. And then I sort of paired with that, I do sort of want to pair it up with some spear fishing at some stage. Of like, oh, you just hunt for your own food, and like, just the whole aspect of it seems really cool. But I mean, I have zero experience with it, and I want to get into it.
So what is it about the free diving that's just flicked your switch? Like, is it the going deep, or is it just generally just that breath control?
The breath control, not necessarily going deep, but just exploring the underwater aspect. Sort of, it just looks so peaceful and calm down there. And in Vancouver, I don't know anything about underwater, because like when you're on the surface, it's very dark. You don't get to see down below, whereas in a tropical environment, you tend to see below, and you're like, oh, I want to go explore that. But it's sort of a mystery around here. But just from the photos and the short videos I've seen from my buddy doing it, it's like, that just looks like a magical place down there. And it's something you just need a wetsuit, really. There's a few other things, and training, obviously, because it can be quite dangerous as well if you don't know what you're doing. So I need to take a course and learn all the proper techniques and everything with it. But yeah, it's just, you go out, you've got your buddy, and you go and it's again just another way to explore nature and get in touch with it, which really excites me.
Did I see one of your pictures that you do some rock climbing as well?
I don't.
Was that were you out just walking around a sort of rock face?
I was probably walking around a rock face. It's funny, I'm terrified of heights. So I've done rock climbing in the past. Like I took outdoor adventure in school. So I've done rock climbing and ice climbing. I can go up fine. It's the time when you need to like sit back and mostly exclusively done top rope climbing. I won't do lead because the free fall terrifies me. But I can do it. I just haven't done it since the ostomy, but I've done it like lots of hiking and scrambling, that kind of thing, but not so into the heights, which is funny because kiteboarding, like you want to jump high, but like mostly I'm grounded to the water.
It sounds a little bit counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to get that pop. You want to get up high, and like some of the tricks that people do on those kiteboards, like they are 20 feet in the air sometimes.
Oh yeah, you got to after this YouTube Red Bull King of the Air. It's insane. Some of like what the pros are doing. It's mind blowing. I will never do that.
And I guess as well, because it's a big sale, so I guess you kind of can pop and get yourself up there for some hang time.
Yeah.
If you get it right.
Yeah, if you get it right, it's insane. Like and there's many different sizes, so depending on the wind, you'll pick a different kite size if you have the money for it. That's the other key thing is kiteboarding is it's silly how expensive some of the kites are, but like usually if you're in a certain zone, you'll know the average wind speed, so you can get away with having one kite, and then it's when you start traveling with it, you're like, oh crap, I wish I had this size, and becoming a gearhead is a bit cumbersome. So
yeah, but we do all like the bag gear. So the guys listening sort of on an ostomy perspective, like how long are you out for? And like you mentioned that sometimes you would only need to empty your bag once, but do you do anything different to a normal day with regards to putting your bag on? And because you're doing quite a lot of stuff, and some people would be concerned about the bag peeling or a slight loss of adhesion or something like that. And I just want to know, like, is that ever a worry for you? Has that ever happened to you?
No, I've always, so basically I will put on a fresh bag either the morning of or the day before, depending on sort of how the bag's looking, and how many days I've been wearing it for. But once I'm out doing whatever activity it is, like I'll check the bag before I, really get into it. But then, I check it and then forget it. Like I'm very, very lucky with good adhesion. I've never had an issue with a leak doing any sport. Like if the bag overfills when you're snowboarding and you fall, like getting back up can be a bit tricky because it's like right in that bend spot at your hips. So that can be a little bit tricky if the bag's too full. So yeah, the big thing is just keeping your eye on how full the bag is. For me, kiteboarding, I haven't had, like, kiteboarding session, I'm usually out maybe half an hour to an hour per session. They come in, have a break. Like it's usually a pretty good workout. So, you're not out kiteboarding for like 8 hours straight or anything like that. Whereas snowboarding, if you're at a resort, then you can just pop in every, couple hours if you need to go to the bathroom or backcountry. You just check it before you're doing anything too exposed, and make sure you're able to keep the bag pretty empty so you have the most flexibility and maneuverability with it. Yeah, because that's the big thing is when the bag's full, you're not able to do as much.
Yeah, it can be a real struggle sometimes, especially when it starts moving about and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So you were quite well adjusted from the start, and I want to know, what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe a little bit anxious about either having surgery or they've just had it and are really anxious about what their body, like maybe body conscious or just worried about how people might take them? What would your advice be?
Just take it, you're going to have your own you have to figure out your own path to acceptance, really. So whatever that is for you. So for me, I've always been just like, whatever, this is how it's going to be. But if your path is slightly different, then that's fine. You're allowed to have those differences and worries and fears and things like that. So don't, just because one person has, like I had over 10 years to sort of in the back of my mind have this, there could be an ostomy in my future. So like it was, whereas some people wake up with it and like, boom, I have an ostomy. What does this mean? And for me, like with the Crohn's side of things, like I never was involved with like online groups. I didn't really have any friends that had Crohn's or colitis. I kind of just dealt with it on my own. But then since having my ostomy, I've become I've gotten more involved with all the different online groups and things like that. But there's just so much out there that you can ask people for advice. You can say, oh, hey, what worked for you? What doesn't work for you? That kind of thing. And everybody is a little bit different. So don't take, because one person has done it this way, it's not necessarily going to be your path. But you can definitely, you'll be able to work through it and get there. It's just, I'm mumbling at this stage, but
that's cool. What's been the biggest challenge for you with Crohn's in general? Doesn't have to be related to an ostomy. What's been the sort of the biggest challenge for you? Don't worry, I'll ping you back in.
Okay. Biggest challenge for me, I would say, is my diet. Crohn's is so relevant to the diet, and sorry, just pumping back into the Instagram side of things. And I am addicted to bad food, like greasy junk food. Did I hit that right? Oh, sorry.
Keep going.
Yeah. What I would say, like my struggle is with food. I love to eat unhealthy food, and I struggle to eat the good, healthy stuff that's going to fuel my body properly. And I know that, but even with the knowledge, I still struggle with the poor diet. So, and I'm now that I have energy and I'm healthy again, I'm doing better, but I'm still working on it. It's that's my biggest struggle for sure, is maintaining a healthy diet. And yeah, I'm nowhere near good yet, but I'm way better than I was. Yeah.
So what are your hopes for the future with moving on with your life? You've obviously now got your Barbie butt, so the stoma is there to stay, so to speak. What would be your hopes for the future with Crohn's disease and just moving forward with your own life?
Hopes for the future. I really want to. So I'm medication free right now. I'm taking supplements for like just vitamins and things like that. But in terms of medication, I'm fully medication free, and I would love to stay that way. So my hopes is that I can sort of tackle this diet thing and enjoy a healthy diet instead of struggle with it, and just basically through Tales from the Bag, I'm trying to sort of inspire others to lead whatever life that they want. So just, I want you to be able to be confident in you and do what you want to do, and whatever that might be. So your mountain might not be a literal mountain. It may be, I don't even know what, but so just that kind of would be sort of my hope and goal, is that I can sort of inspire somebody to just push their own personal boundaries and figure out what pushes them and what their passions are, and that they seek them out and really push themselves to achieve those.
Yeah, totally, mate. That's yeah, I think that's a brilliant way to look at it. So with things going forwards and just trying to get the most out of life, what would your advice be to somebody who's going through all the same things that you're going through and has maybe been new to IBD in general, and they're maybe on a long string of medication they've never heard of before? What would your advice be to those people?
Really be your own advocate. You do some research into the medication as they come up. Don't just take it blindly necessarily. And you just got to roll with the punches, really. It's funny how, like the number of times I've literally crapped my pants, and you have to eventually, I know in the moment is the worst, but finding the humor in those situations and finding a way to make light of some things that aren't easy. And I've found smiling and just powering through with a smile and a laugh. Being able to laugh at yourself is huge. And apparently we're testing the fire alarm in my building right now.
That's hilarious.
I apologize about that.
So for somebody who is looking to start adventure sports, what would your advice be? Say someone's looking to start up snowboarding or going out big country. They've got an ostomy. What would your advice be for them? What would be the sort of things that you'd ask them to consider?
Again, just planning ahead. It's all about preparation. So when you take your courses, so if you're going to go into the backcountry, you want to definitely take your avalanche course. And then when you're doing those courses, let your instructor know, hey, I have an ostomy. Just usually some of them will know, some of them will not know, but just say, hey, like this is how it affects me, but otherwise I'm all good. And then just making sure that your own body is prepped and ready. So just giving that strength. I worked with a physio to make sure that I developed the core muscles. Man, this fire alarm. So yeah, it was really just building that muscle strength and getting your body ready. It's all the pre-prep, because once you're out there, you get to focus on being out there, connecting with nature, and forgetting all about the realities of your body, because you're so focused on climbing that mountain, snowboarding back down it. It's so much fun. Oh my god.
Do you need to go, or is there...
I don't think so. Maybe. Maybe I need to evacuate and I don't know it yet.
Well, do you want to go and check, and then you can come back on if you're all right to go?
Yeah, sure. I'll be right back. Sorry about this, guys.
Okay, guys, so we'll call it an end of the show now. If you enjoyed what you've watched so far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and yeah, we'll pick this up at another time. This is the joys of being live. Hey, Alex, no worry. You get yourself safe, buddy, okay?
Yep, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.